Jon Cooper, Ourlad's Guide to the NFL Draft. And John, as we move into the end of the month of February, what are teams right now most focused on? Is it getting prepared for the Combine? Is it setting up whatever they do after the Combine? Kind of give us a little bit of an itinerary of what is most important.
Well, I think most teams have been, since the Senior Bowl and the other All-Star games have been working on trying to get their boards set prior to the Combine, understanding that the Combine is going to be, and the Pro Days is going to be where the board more or less gets massaged based on that. So, I know that some of the teams that, I'm aware of, are, I'd say towards the end of this week are pretty much done with that. There may be some last minute stuff, but they're getting ready to get to the Combine. They'll have meetings at the Combine talking about what they're seeing, and they'll continue to work, on the board during that period of time.
How many players in this draft will you guys have with true first-round grades?
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is more like 20 this year.
Okay.
But I've heard some people say 12. I've heard some people say, 15. So I think it's in that ballpark. The way we look at it, there's probably a real good value from about 20 to maybe 50, and maybe even beyond that, where the value of the players are very similar. And so I don't think there's going to be some surprises, as people start to look at what the draft prognosticators are writing, and they're going to have their board set up, and they're going to say maybe that the guy that is number 50 on that board might end up being drafted in the first round. So, and it's not going to be surprising to me because the value there's a lot of similarities in how you might value those players.
John, I understand that this question is mostly because of this guy's last name, and I am no talent evaluator. That's your job. But were you surprised to see Shiloh Sanders not get a Combine invite? Do you view him as an NFL prospect? Have you been able to even watch him? I mean, I should probably start by asking you that first of all, but did that come as any surprise to you at all?
No, not really. He's a nice player, but there's a lot of good defensive backs this year, particularly corners. But as a safety, he's a solid player. I don't think he has blazing speed. He's doesn't have any one trait that's really all that outstanding. I mean, we haven't studied him a lot because on the board, the guys that's doing safeties, he's got a lot of guys that are ahead of him. As far as not being invited to the Combine, I didn't really look at the number of safeties that were invited. I think he was probably on the bubble and, could have been selected just as easy as not. There's quite a few other surprises too.
What were a couple more that popped up to you?
Well, Sean Dolak is a linebacker that, is extremely productive at Buffalo that, we thought would get invited. That was one. That I think of. Oh God, I'm senior moment. Trying to think of, there was another one we were just talking about the other day. There's probably about 5 of them that were Combine snubs, and they escape me right now. But Dolak's the one that comes to mind because I've seen him play, and I like him. I think he's at least a late round pick.
So if you're not invited, which has got to be like a kick in the gut, what must you do? And do they ever invite anybody last second because somebody else is injured or whatever? What does that mean? And is it harder now or easier now if you're overlooked at the Combine to still be found as a diamond in the rough?
I think it's easier now because these guys have played in bowl games, and there's the film is readily available. It's not like the old days where you'd have to call the school and set the film sent to you. I mean, the film is there in an instant, on the computer. So the scouts, these teams have their scouts working, so they've seen these guys and they've graded them all. There's probably I think in our database there's 1,400 players, and in the NFL teams database, I've got to believe there's more. So they're seeing all these guys, and they've got the manpower to know what they are. And of course, with the pro days, they're still going to get a chance to get worked out. So yeah, the Combine is good. It's great. It's an honor, but it's not the end all as far as getting drafted, because there's a number of guys that get drafted that weren't at the Combine.
if you're the Titans and the Browns who have the first 2 picks and clearly needs at quarterback, but like I asked you before, there's not that many first-round grades, and if they're, I've seen a lot of people that don't grade either quarterback as a true first-rounder. Now, their position, obviously, value inflates their draft position more than anyone else. Do you think, especially with those teams the way they are, that they can risk moving past them, especially not knowing what the class is really going to look like next year?
That's far.
So much forgiveness. Wait, did you say forgiveness like far or forgiveness like forgiveness? Forgiveness. Forgiveness. Forgiveness.
I'm hearing far.
Forgiveness. Like forgiveness. Forgiveness? Forgiveness.
I'm still hearing far, but whatever.
Introducing Stealth 2 with more carbon for more forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Just hit it.
Well, I think it's a tough call because you don't know, is Minnesota going to, put their money into Sam Darnold? Is there going to be a free agent quarterback, that you can get that is serviceable while you, wait for that quarterback maybe next year? I think both of those teams need a quarterback. But that said, they have quarterbacks, at least Tennessee has one in the building they can use that has played and is still young. So and if it's me, I'm probably going to trade down. You got to have a good football team around that quarterback. And if you have a lot of needs, you better get those taken care of. And if there's somebody wanting to trade up for that quarterback, then you have to consider, can I pick up some of those, mid-round or another mid-second round pick or a early second round pick? And I pick up another mid-round pick along with that? Can I stock up on some solid football players to make my team better? Just ask the Chicago Bears. They didn't have the offensive line to protect the number 1 pick in the draft, and you saw what happened to them. They went south in a hurry. They needed some more talent to go with that quarterback. So I think that's got to be a big consideration. But like we said before, there's 2 drafts. There's the quarterback draft, and then there's the rest of the guys. So guys can be ranked as a second-round pick and still get drafted high in the first round simply because of the need.
Jon, I know it's a very small sample size, so this might be a better question for the future, but have you seen any notable, more dispersal of talent nationally as a result of the portal and guys staying longer and things of that nature? Or is it maybe too early to tell if there's more guys that aren't the power 2, power 4, whatever guys that are kind of on the radar, or maybe just in different places than they normally are?
Well, I think ultimately those players are going to show up in the draft. So if there's one year where the portal is big and guys are going back, eventually they're going to come out. So I think it kind of evens out. I think when it first started happening, where a lot of juniors, as many juniors weren't coming out because they were staying in school, eventually that evens out as they come out. The senior classes maybe are a little bit bigger, and the classes might be just a little bit smaller. But to me, it all evens out. The talent is always different every year. The strengths of the draft are going to be different every year. And so, I don't think it makes that big a difference. I think it did initially. I'm not sure it's making that big a difference right now.
Jon, speed kills, a quarterback that looks the part, whatever it might be, the body, the arm, and all of that. What do scouts sometimes have to be careful of falling in love with too much?
I think mobility is something everybody wants, but the number one thing is they've got to be able to play from the pocket. You could have the greatest running quarterback in the world, but if he can't process from the pocket, he's going to have limited NFL success. So falling in love with great mobility, speed, ability to create with your feet. I think that sometimes is something that people get a little too enamored with. I'm not sure NFL scouts do that much because they're pretty shrewd. They know that what it takes in the NFL to play. But I think for us, the pundits, so to speak, are we've got to be careful about falling in love with the athlete and realizing that, hey, you know what? Sooner or later, they have to process. The NFL offenses are different. NFL defenses are different. So processing skills are really, really important.
Where do you feel the majority of the best linebackers in this draft class are? Are they in that second to third round range?
Yeah, I think there's a good crew of linebackers in the second round. That there's some people that really like some guys that maybe are first round picks. We right now in our board that we're still stacking don't have anyone with a first round grade as an off the ball linebacker, but that doesn't mean they're not good. I think it just means the defensive tackle, the edge rusher talent, is so much better, and the fact that there's good offensive tackle talent too, without a lot of depth. But you start getting a little bit lower, first round, second round. There's some really solid players. Jalen Walker is kind of an intriguing prospect that a lot of people really like. I'm not sure he's a great off the ball linebacker, and I'm not sure he's a great edge rusher, but he's a great athlete that somebody's going to find something to do. He's just raw, at what he's doing. Chris Paul Jr. is somebody we really like from Mississippi. We have him graded as our top linebacker in terms of his skill set and things of that nature. I don't think very many people, will have that. But we see him as a solid second round pick. Danny Stutzman is a guy that's up there as a potential second rounder. Jihad Campbell is somebody that has really good size, that has some have made a Tremaine Edmonds comp with him. I'm not sure I'll go that far with him, but he's a guy that figures to be in that second round conversation. And Carson Schlesinger is somebody we really like. He's one of the best cover linebackers we've seen. Get out of UCLA, first-year starter, great special team player for 2 years, and all of a sudden comes out of nowhere to be a finalist for the Butkus Award.
James Pearce, hell of a player out of Tennessee, edge rusher, dynamic, and yet I happen to see it flash in front of my timeline or whatever that some teams are at least allegedly taking him off the board. He has dynamic talent, but possible character concerns. How much of that is maybe people floating that out real so it would drop, or how much have you heard about him?
I've heard that that's real, without going into detail. There's some definite issues there. So yeah, I could see that happening with him. And watching him play, he's really quick at the snap, but you really watch, and there's some holes there too. We don't have him in the first round. He's not off the board. Obviously, we're not drafting, but we don't have him in the first round.
What do you do when there are the potential parts of doing this in your lifetime? Have you had players you just said, no matter what we need, no matter what position they play, and we need that position, you just take them off the board? How difficult is that?
Well, we don't have access to a lot of the information that the NFL teams have. They've got a security report, they've got a medical report. A lot of that stuff comes late in the game because they want to make sure there isn't something that shows up, in terms of character right before the draft. So that week of the draft or the week right before is when those reports, are finalized. And the teams then find out, this guy has really got some baggage. He's got some potential, assault case pending, or maybe there's some people that are, looking at that. There's a drug issue. There's been some crazy character issues that have come out with some of these players, and they're taken off the board. And, you always wonder why. Hey, this is a guy we had early second round, and it's the sixth round, and he's disappeared. And then people like myself start saying, probably one of those situations, or there could be a medical too. There's a lot of things there.
Jon Cooper with his Ourlad's Guide to the NFL Draft. How much will a board change between what is set now and what happens the week before the draft?
Well, for us, our board, we're working on it all the time. We don't have the manpower that everybody else has, so we haven't. We're doing a lot of experimenting with our board, with mock drafts and things like that. But we've probably got about 150 players graded right now out of the huge database that we have, and those grades will change possibly a little bit because of the combine. We want to see certain drills, speed, but not dramatically. And I think it's the same, NFL teams maybe even more so. They're going to get their board set right around combine time and a little bit after that. And then they're going to do what they call massaging the board player may move up a little bit, may move down a little bit, but not dramatically. But it's something they always do. I know that a lot of teams will spend a few days before the draft doing mock drafts to try to figure out where these players might possibly go. And then some of that last minute information that comes in will help them massage their board, as I call it.
When you get to draft day, is it easy? Even though someone might pull the rug out from under you or some team might take who you want if you're looking for a player. Is it easy? It's like taking a test, you know you're prepared, or is it like chaos?
I think it can be both. I know in talking to one team, they had a player. They typically have tiers of players, and they have what they call pods or tiers. And they say that we will take this player in this pod. If he is higher than that, we won't take him. And if he's gone and some of the other players we have in that tier, we're going to move on to another position. We will not reach, so there's a certain amount that they will not reach to get a player if they've got him graded, in a certain tier. And I know that in talking to one last year, they had a certain player or position that they really wanted to draft in that particular round. And all of a sudden there was nobody there. It was a cornerback was the position, and the corners that they felt were worthy of that pick were gone, and they weren't going to reach for one. So they tried very hard to trade down. They couldn't trade down. They ended up taking the next best player available, the best player available at a perceived position of need, even though it wasn't what they had earmarked for that spot. So a lot of teams do it that way. They earmark parts of the draft for where they want to get that player. And they have a group of players that they feel have the value that it could be selected there.
Hey, man, Jon, as always, thank you very much for your knowledge and the experience from Ourlad. I need to get in touch with you, send you my debit card. Send us one of those hats. We'll put it on our set.
I'll have to get – these are out of style, but I'll tell you what. We do have another one that I think I can get you. I'll talk to the people that do that kind of thing, and I'll see what I can do.
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely. I mean, you're part of our deal, man. We want to see that. Thank you very much.
All right, you bet. Well, thanks a lot.
Jon Cooper with us from Ourlad's Guide to the NFL Draft on 365 Sports.